Hello and welcome. Ever found yourself wishing you could easily transcribe spoken words into text like magic? Today, we're going to make that wish come true. We will use OpenAI's Cyper API for this purpose. Let's get started. First, navigate to the OpenAI website. Look for the Login button in the top right corner of the web page. If you haven't created an account yet, don't worry. Just click Sign Up and follow the simple steps to create your account. Once you're logged in, let's dive into the API documentation. This is where you'll find all the essential details about OpenAI's powerful APIs. Next, locate the user menu also in the top right corner. From the drop-down options, go ahead and select View API Keys. Here comes an important step: generating your API key. Just click on the Create API Key button and enter a title for this key. After you've done that, your new API key will be generated. Make sure you copy this key immediately, as you won't be able to see it again for security reasons. This key is like a special password that allows you to use OpenAI API, so keep it safe. Now we'll focus on ensuring that our API secret key is securely stored. We'll be using a helpful Node.js package called dotenv for this. If you're using npm, you can do this by typing npm install dotenv in your terminal. Once you've installed dotenv, go to your main JavaScript file. For many of you, this will be index.js. Here, require the dotenv module at the top of your file. This line of code will make all the variables in your dotenv file available throughout this JavaScript file. Next, let's create a .env file in the root of your project. This file will store our environment variables. Create a variable called OpenAI API key and assign the API secret key we just generated as its value. Remember, our dotenv file contains sensitive data, so we want to prevent it from accidentally being pushed to our GitHub repository. To do this, ensure that you've added the dotenv file to your Git in your file. Now it would still be useful for anyone looking at our code to know what environment variables they'll need to supply. To handle this, let's create another file, .env.example, and list all the required variables there without their actual values. This file will be added to your Git repository. Perfect. We've securely stored our secret key and also made sure that it stays secret. Let's move on to the next steps. In the OpenAI documentation, navigate to the API reference section. You can find a wealth of information here about different APIs provided by OpenAI. For our purpose, select Audio from the side panel. This will bring you to a page dedicated to audio processing, where you'll find information about converting audio into text transcriptions. I encourage you to explore this section, especially the parameters and possible settings for the API request. To save time, we'll use the provided code snippet as a base for our code. You'll notice that you can switch between Python and Node.js versions of the code snippet depending on your preference. As we're working in Node.js for this tutorial, go ahead and copy the JavaScript version of the code. Once you've copied it, go ahead and paste it into your Node.js project. Moving right along, we now need to install the OpenAI library in our project. This library contains functions and classes that make it easy to interact with OpenAI's API. To install it, simply type npm install OpenAI into your project's terminal. Let's go back to our code snippet. Here you'll notice we require two classes, Configuration and OpenAI API. The Configuration class is used to set up your OpenAI client with the correct API key. You'll see that when we create a new instance of the Configuration class, we pass in an object. This object has one field, API key. This is where we provide our secret key, securely retrieved from our .env file. Perfect, we're on the right track. Now let's create a function called Create Transcription. This function will be our main driver for converting audio files into transcriptions. We'll take the remainder of our code snippet and put it within this function. Our function will take one parameter, audio file name. Let's break down what's happening inside this function. We're using the Create Transcription method from our OpenAI instance. This method sends a request to the OpenAI API to transcribe the provided audio file into text. It takes two parameters, the audio file to be transcribed and the name of the model that should be used for the transcription. Create readstream is a method from the fs module, which we use to read the audio file. It opens the audio file and creates a readable stream, which is what the OpenAI API requires to process the audio. Finally, the function will return the transcription. Before we forget, let's require the fs module at the top of our file. That's all it takes. Now, if you place an audio file in your project's root folder and run the create transcription function with your audio file's name as a parameter, you'll see that it logs all the transcribed text from the audio. Remember, Create transcription returns a promise, so make sure to use await when calling this function. You could even experiment by fetching a YouTube video, converting it to an MP3 file, and then transcribing that into text. If you're not sure how to fetch a YouTube video, don't worry, I've got you covered. Check out my previous tutorial on that subject. You'll find the link in the description below, and for your convenience, I've placed all the source code for this tutorial on GitHub. You can find the link in the description. I've even included an example audio file for you to play around with. And with that, we come to the end of this tutorial. If you found it helpful, please do give it a like, share it with anyone you think might find it useful, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on more such tutorials. I appreciate your support. Thank you, and happy coding.